Okay, welcome back. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create this isometric drawing that's sitting off here to the side. But before I do that, I'm going to correct one thing that I see that I kind of made a mistake on. So let me get out of ISO drafting real quick. And I'm just clicking this icon. And remember that if it's not blue, it's not activated. These two fillets here are not correct. And to correct those, all I'm going to do is delete them. I'll create a line from this quadrant going down, and make sure you turn your ortho on just to make sure that it goes down straight. And it doesn't have to be a specific distance, it just needs to be long enough for me to click on. Then I'll use the fillet command, set my radius to 18, and then I'll select these two lines. I'll just hit the enter button and select these two lines. And you're going to also see that I'm going to have to go back and fix this dimension. And that's nothing more than coming back to my dimensions. And then that's going to be a radius dimension. I'll go ahead and place it. And remember, we can double click on this so we can use any kind of editing feature. So if I want to just edit this, I can type in ED, which stands for text edit. Enter. Select my dimension here. Once again, click the home button on your keyboard and then type into X, and that should be a capital X. Then I'll click outside of it and then hit escape twice. Okay, so now with that being corrected, let's go ahead and start creating our isometric drawing. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to create kind of this front face, and then we're going to build this back one off of it, and then we'll have this part protruding out of it. Okay. So I want to switch to isometric, and I'm just going to click this icon, and you'll see that I'm now in isometric. This icon turned blue, and this one as well is blue. It's always a good idea to have your ortho on whenever you create an isometric, and that'll help keep your lines going in an isometric view. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle to isometric left, and remember that's the function key 5 button. If you don't have that button, or maybe you're using something, or you're maybe using a laptop, you can always click the drop down, or the fly up in this case, next to it, and click ISO left. Okay, now I'm going to create a line. And remember, this distance is going to be 12 going down, 144 going this direction, 12 coming up, and then C close. So just C enter. Okay, that's the front half of this. And now I'm going to go ahead and create the back half. And I'm just going to simply do that with the copy command. And I'm going to select all of my lines, enter. I'll switch to isometric top by toggling with the F5 button. Click a base point. I'm going to point this direction, type in 42. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and create a circle, or in this case, it's going to be an ellipse. Now remember that anytime I'm using isometrics, there are ISO circles that you can use that are predefined by AutoCAD. But there is no toolbar for it. So let me go ahead and switch back to ISO left. This time I'm going to have to type in the ellipse command, and the shortcut for it is EL, enter. I'm going to touch this midpoint, and then we're going to track off of it. Type in 38. And I'm sorry, I think I did that wrong. I did not select ISO circle. Let's do that one more time. So I'll go to escape, EL, enter. Then I'm going to go to ISO circle here on my command line. Now I'm going to touch this midpoint, and then I'm going to come straight up from it. And you can see that I dodged any other O-snaps. So I'm tracking off of here. I'll type in 38. Now it's asking me for a radius, but I want to use a diameter. I'll type or hit the diameter button, or you can type in D, and then type in 60, which is our diameter in this case. Let's go ahead and draw that tangent line that's going here from the back. So let's create a line, and that's just L enter, coming from this endpoint. And I'm just going to type in the first 3 letters, which is TAN, enter, and then I'll click on my circle here. You can see that that will create what I need here. Let's do that on the other side. So L enter. I'll go ahead and click that endpoint, type in TAN, enter, and then I have that endpoint. Okay, So now we can go back and look, and we have this thickness part, which is located at a distance of 9. And if we refer back to the drawing, we're talking about this dimension here. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy these 3 objects. So I'll go to copy. I can select them first, and that's just going to bypass that step. It's going to automatically tell me to pick a displacement. So I'm going to click here. Make sure that you change your ISO direction, and I'm back in isometric top. I'm going to aim this direction. Also take notice that my ortho is still on, so it's keeping it in a straight line. I'm aiming this direction. I'll type in 9, enter. And then I'll hit the escape button twice. Okay, so now some of the things that we can see here. I'm going to trim this portion out of my arc. So I'll go to trim. And remember that if you're using an earlier version, the cutting edges are going to come up first. But in 2023, we have to come down and select and tell it that I want to select cutting edges. So I'm going to select this first line and then this line. Enter. And I'm just going to trim off this top portion here. Now I know I won't be able to see the rest of this around, but I'm going to wait until I get my other part that's kind of coming up here. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'll go ahead and define that arc that's located here. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and draw a circle, and notice that I'm looking at the back center. I have 2 centers here. I'm looking at this center. I'm going this direction, and once again I'm in isometric top. I'm going to type in the radius, which is going to be 30 in this case. So 30. I'll switch back to isometric left. Then I'm going to come down to just below where it intersects with this line. Let's go ahead and trim this portion off. So trim, and I'm just using shortcuts here. So TR, enter, and I'll go ahead and trim off this portion here. And I'll also trim off this back line here. Okay, so remember that we can't just use fillet commands when we're dealing with isometric, so I have to actually draw that radius that is going out. The center of that is located at 18 going this direction and 18 coming down. So to shortcut this, I'm just going to draw a line from this endpoint coming out this direction at a distance of 18. I'll go back to the ellipse, so I'm typing in EL, enter. I'm going to choose ISO circle, so I'm just going to type I, enter. I'll click this endpoint. It's asking me for a radius. I do know the radius. It's 18. Okay, I have that located. Now remember that this circle is located 38 above. So I need to bring this down until where it intersects with this. If you kind of do some simple math, you can figure that out, that it should be moving down at that direction. If you don't want to do the math, another way of doing this is just simply draw a line from this endpoint to where it intersects this line here. We can use the move command, select the circle, enter, and I'm going to choose this intersection, and then I want it to be on this intersection. So if you don't want to do the math and figure that out, you can also let AutoCAD kind of figure that part out for you. Okay, you can see that we are going to have a little piece of that line left over here, and it's going to run over this direction. So let's go back to the trim command. And to speed this up, if I want to set the cutting edge, and then I'm going to select my circle here, enter, and then I'll just trim off these 2 portions. Okay, let's go ahead and delete some of this stuff that I used to construct this with. So I'm going to delete these 3 lines. And I'm purposely not doing this on the other side, mainly because you won't see it, but we can do the exact same thing on the other side if you like, and I'll show you that you actually won't see this in an isometric. But it's always a good idea to check it. So next, let's go ahead and trim off this next portion. So I'll go to trim, and once again, I like using cutting edges, especially when I'm using isometrics. So I select cutting edge, I'm going to select this line, and then this line, enter, and then I'll trim off this portion. Okay, so we know that this surface here that I just created will not be seen at all, but I'm going to copy these 3 lines forward. So I'm going to select them, choose copy, pick a base point. Remember that I'm going to have to shift to anything other than isometric left, so I'm just going to use isometric top. I'm going to come down this direction, and I'll type in 9, enter. And I'm also going to go ahead and type in the 42 since I already know where it's at. So I'll type in 42, enter, and then escape. Alright, so I know that this back line will not be seen. So I'll go ahead and delete now these 3 lines. And you can see now that I do have my kind of curved object. So what I'm going to see on this circle is that this is going to wrap around and it'll come here, and you won't see any of this bottom portion. Okay, I know this looks a little strange right now. Let's go ahead and connect some lines here just to kind of make this look a lot better. So I'll draw a line from this endpoint to here. Let's go ahead and create that other endpoint to here. And on this side, let's draw a line from this endpoint all the way over to that endpoint. Okay, so let's go ahead and also get rid of this bottom line and then that line. Okay, so now we kind of got things shaping up kind of the way that they need to be, or how they have to be seen. I know this kind of looks a little weird floating out here, but I'll go ahead and create it on the other side just to show you that it will not be seen eventually. So before I do that, I'm going to go to copy, select this circle, enter, click a base point. I'm coming forward this direction. I'll type in 42. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is the exact same thing I did before. I'll draw a line from this center. I'm going to come out this direction, and I'll stop here. I'm just going to trim off this portion. I'll draw another line from this endpoint out at a distance of 18. I'm going to create an ISO circle, but first, before I do that, I'm going to switch to isometric left. So I'm hitting F5. EL, enter, I, enter. Select this endpoint, radius, 18, like we did before. Draw a line from that endpoint coming straight down. Move this circle from that intersection down to this intersection. Let's draw a line from that endpoint going straight down to this direction. Okay, I'll go ahead and delete all of these lines. And then I'll go ahead and use a quick trim, and I'll just get rid of all this stuff. So I'm just going to use the trim command. And this time I'm not using any cutting edges because I kind of already know what's going to happen here, but I'll show you, and I'll just keep trimming these off. And you can see now that that portion is there. Okay, so it's there if this top circle would stop at this location. But remember that this top circle extends out to a distance of 60. So that's what we see here. So I'm just going to copy now this back circle, pick a base point. I have to shift to an isometric top. I'm coming this direction, and I'll type in 60. And you can see now that that is totally behind it. And it looks like there's just a little bitty piece that does stick out, so I guess we can keep it. Okay, so to trim off this portion of this line that we will not see, let's go back to the trim command. I'm going to select the cutting edge, and this time I'm going to select this top circle in the front. Enter, and I'm going to trim off this portion of that line, since we will not see it, and also this portion. Do a little bit more cleanup work here. We see that this part is going to go all the way around and go this way. So I can actually trim off this portion of this circle, as it will not be seen. Then let's use the escape button. I think we can trim off a little bit more here, but let's go ahead and do that as well. Let's trim that portion off. Okay, escape. Let's go ahead and delete that circle now and this line. I just want to make sure I don't have a double line here, and I think I do. Let's go ahead and trim, and I just want to trim off that portion. Okay. Alright, so we have this line going across. We have this one now set up to go right. This line here is not needed at the moment, so I'll go ahead and delete that. Let's create a line now from this quadrant to the quadrant all the way in the back. And we're going to do the same here. So we're going to have a line going from this quadrant going all the way to the back. Oh, now that I think about it, I don't need that line. Okay. And it looks like I prematurely deleted a circle that I do need, but I'm going to draw a line from this quadrant, and that goes back. And what I deleted was that actually that under part that's going to wrap around here. Okay. Let's go ahead and delete this circle. And that should be about everything I need. Let's go ahead and put a couple of circles back. So I'm going to copy that circle. I'll click here as my base point. Let's type in 42. Okay, and the portion that I need is just these two lines that are going here. So let's go to the trim command. I'm going to select my cutting edges, which is going to be here, and that line. Enter, and then let's take off that portion. Escape, and then I just need to trim off this portion. I can do some a little bit quicker if you're tired of using the trim command. You can always select the line, select the grip, and put it right on that other grip. You can see that gave me a little gap, but I can come back and select it and then put it on that endpoint. Okay, so we have almost everything that I need to construct this with. I have one more line that I'm going to have to use or trim. So let's go to trim, cutting edges, select that line and this line. And now that I think about it, I think I got rid of another line. I forgot that arc that's going through here. So escape that real quick, and let's go ahead and copy this forward a distance of 9. Yes, I do need that portion. Let's go back to the trim command. Let's go ahead and select our cutting edges. And in this case, we're going to need, it's going to be a little bitty line there, and where it intersects with this line. And it looks like I did miss that line. Okay, so you can see I have something that I don't want here. You can always hold down the shift button and then select that line, and that'll be your deselector. Enter. Let's go ahead and just trim that portion off. Now that looks a lot better. Alright, back to what I was originally doing. Let's go to trim, cutting edges, select this line, and now this line. Enter. Trim off this bottom portion. Let's go ahead and use the array function and go ahead and copy about 11 of these at a distance of 3. So let's go to copy. Select that arc. Enter. I'm going to pick a base point somewhere out here. I'm going to use the word array that's on my command line. I'll type in, I need 11 of them. And now, as long as I'm aiming this direction, I'll type in 3, enter, and then escape. And then that'll kind of give me that little feature of where you can see the curves running through. All right, let's go ahead and put our last little bitty lines here with for our circles that are going through. So I'm going to copy these two lines, pick a base point. I want to come this direction, a distance of 16. And I'll come back to copy, select this line, enter, and I'm going to bring this over a distance of 12. I'll do the exact same thing on this side, so copy this line, pick a base point, and I want to go this direction, 12. Notice that I'm in isometric top. I'm going to go to ellipse, iso circle. Click here's my point. So I'm trying to get to that intersection. And the diameter, so I'm going to type in D, enter, it's going to be 12. Just go to copy. Select your circle, enter. And I think I may have did something wrong. I'm looking at this circle and I was judging it off of, I based it and moved it over a distance of 12 when it's actually 18. Okay. Which is really not a super big deal. Let's go ahead and move this. Click a base point and go over this direction, a distance of 6. And then I'll move this line. Pick a base point and come this direction, a distance of 6. Alright, now I have my circle in the correct location. Let's go ahead and copy this circle from this endpoint over to that intersection. So you will not even see that circle at all. So I can delete all of that stuff. And I can delete that. Alright, one last step I need to do is I'm just going to switch. Well, 2 more steps. I see that I also got rid of another line here. Let's draw a line from that intersection or endpoint going this direction. And we're going to come back and trim that portion off. Okay, let's go ahead and put our final ellipse in here that has a diameter of 36. So I'm just going to switch to isometric left. And once again, I'm using the F5 button to do this. Ellipse, then iso circle. I'll locate the center. Type in D for diameter. Give it its diameter, which is 36. And now I have my shape created. Okay. So now that I've done all that, I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And you can see that this is quite large as an isometric, but these are just pictures, so you can actually scale these down. So I'm going to adjust this one by scale. I'm going to select my isometric. I'll click here. And then I want to make it a little bit smaller. Let's try 0.625. Looks like a good scale for it. Then let's go ahead and move it into the drawing. All right. I'm just zooming the extents. Remember, you can click this button or click the middle mouse wheel. All right, so now we have a completed drawing of this one with the isometric. What I plan on doing next is creating this part as a 3D object and then doing the dimensions and see how quick it is in comparison to laying out everything this way. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video or like the content that I'm doing, please, I just ask you to hit the like button. And once again, I want you to thank you for watching and leave me any comments or anything if I did anything wrong. So thank you for watching this. Bye-bye.